We're going to welcome Morgan in, which I appreciate Morgan joining us. Morgan also, Max, a media personality. She was a part of our broadcast team last year at the U.S.
Yes, the
Senior Women's
dog.
Open.
Thank God. The first question was going to be about your dog.
I had to bring her in early because she might not stay too long. But
so what's up?
Awesome.
So I say hi.
The real star of the show itself, right there. What's up, Morgan? How are you?
I'm great. How are you guys doing?
Good.
Doing good. We're just early into this. We're watching you as a teenager trying to win this, and we were going through before you came on. We were kind of rattling off some of your accomplishments at such a young age. So I feel like when you hear 17-year-old Morgan Pressel with a chance to win a U.S. Open, that seems insane. But, I mean, you played at a U.S. Open at 12 years old. If you could take us back to 05 and just the mentality going into that final day, I think a lot of 17-year-olds are just going to be happy to be there. But I feel like your mentality was, I believe I'm capable of winning this thing.
Yeah, it was. I'd say it was probably one of the toughest setups I've ever played, and at this point, I think it was my third U.S. Open, so I kind of had an idea for what Sunday of a U.S. Open might.
That's crazy.
And I know, it's crazy.
You're 17 years old. And it's your third one.
I know, and I mean, I did. I was in the final group. I played great all week. I putted probably the best I've ever putted in my career. I'll take some of whatever I did that week. I'll take some more of that. And yeah, I don't. Oh my gosh, look at me. Oh, look, there's baby mommy. Look at that.
Yeah. Well, that's awesome.
I mean,
what a spot.
I was 17 and I was confident. You could say cocky. Just I was there as a youngster, but it didn't feel like that should hold me back from having the opportunity to win. So putting myself in position on Sunday, I was confident. So.
Well, yeah, you'd won everything. I mean, you're like already used to winning more so than most people on the LPGA tour aren't winning 2-3 times a year like on any tour. So you're out there, kicking butt in all the amateur events. So you're more used to winning than mostly anybody except probably Annika Sorenstam at this point.
Yeah, it's an interesting point, but I mean, for sure, you become confident when you're winning, and I definitely won a lot of amateur tournaments in the last couple of years before I turned professional, especially in that last summer. And so there was that confidence. It's golf can beat you up sometimes because you're most of the time losing.
Yes.
So, I'm sure that probably had something to do with my attitude, and not to say that I'm less confident or things like that, but it was a little bit of a different mentality when you're 17 with nothing to lose.
You're like, it's like my friend and I talk about all the time. It's like the type of delusion that you need to have to be great at something, but it's not a negative connotation. It's like you're naive to what winning is. It's just, of course I'm going to win. I win when I'm home. I win all the time. Like I'm just at the U.S. Open, but when you're younger in your head, when you haven't been beaten so many times, it just seems like, of course, that's what I'm going to do.
Yeah, and I always say, people say, did you love the game when you started? I said, kids like doing things that they're good at.
Yeah.
Doing things that they see success and over. And, I think that was definitely something that drew me to the game early. And then, a lot of hard work to eventually make it on tour and things like that, but make a career out of it. But yeah, it was, that was definitely a time where I won a lot of AJJ events, the North and South, the Women's Am, maybe a month after the Open here. So that was a successful summer.
Morgan, I wanted to ask, we're talking about all of your accomplishments. So you're this superstar in the making, if you will. You're playing in a U.S. Women's Open. You've got a chance to win this thing, and you're 17. I mean, all the things we've already mentioned. You've won stuff. I mean, you've won throughout your life at every age, kind of every check mark. And all of a sudden, this 15-year-old is tied for the lead as well, 2 years younger than you, and went a completely different path. Michelle is a youngster, burst on the scene, steals all the headlines, but her path was, I'm jumping right to professional golf, and I'm not checking the boxes. I was reading some stuff back in 05 about this, and it felt as though 17-year-old Morgan Pressel was kind of taking it personally, like, I want to beat her. I want to be this kind of teenage phenom, if you will. And it was really a competition internally with you that you weren't going to let the 15-year-old show you up.
I don't know. I don't know if it was such an internal competition in that fashion. I mean, I wanted to beat pretty much everybody on that leaderboard. But Michelle and I didn't play a lot of golf, even though we're only a couple years apart. But growing up in amateur golf, like you said, she went definitely a different path. We didn't play much together until we were both on tour together. But I mean, obviously, we were all tied for the lead going in. I believe we were.
Yeah,
right?
3 tied for the lead. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, she was definitely and still is a force to be reckoned with. So I knew that it wasn't going to be easy and had to get out there and especially under these conditions. I mean, when was the last time you saw 3 over win at US Open? I mean, the conditions were brutal out there. The greens were so fast. If you missed the fairway, it was a chip out. Like you were taking a wedge. There was no question. And I would say that's different than a lot of the way they play a lot of US Open courses these days. That's probably a little bit more traditional, old school. Obviously, Cherry Hill's such an incredible venue and test of golf. I like that golf swing. That looked good.
Yeah, it does look good.
Who was caddying? Oh.
Sammy was caddying for me. She caddied for me in a few amateur events here, then the women's AM later on that year, and then a little bit into my rookie year as well.
Morgan, we were just watching Lorena Ochoa finish up the 18th hole. She was 3 over, 1 back of the lead going into it. You guys hadn't even made it to the 9th tee yet. How would it change the dynamic of the final round of the tournament had she posted 3 over and not? I'm not sure what she makes, but it's not par.
I think it was a snowman, but I'm not positive.
Yeah.
But I mean, I actually remember because I'm a leaderboard watcher, and I remember I think it was the 11th green when I must have said to Sammy, "Whoa, what happened to Lorena? Like she's all the way on the bottom of the leaderboard now," because those were the volunteer run leaderboards, not the running.
Right. Like shot linky
most
kind.
Events, a little more old school, and Lorena was in the lead, and then all of a sudden I kind of wasn't paying attention, but then once I saw that, I was like, oh my gosh, like what just happened? And it wasn't until I finished that I realized what did happen, but I remember noticing that probably on about the 11th green, I believe it was.
Yeah, because that's where we're mentioning, like when the scores, the golf course is hard, when the scores are going more to the over par side than the under par side, you post something, even if you're 1-2 back, but you post it early, it gives, the leaders a lot to look at, considering you almost feel like you have to hold on for dear life at times, since there's not a lot of birdies to be made on the golf course, as opposed to if the course is playing easier, you post 12 under, but the lead's already at 12. You kind of know that they're going to move on to 13, 14 under with 9 holes to play. This US Open makes a completely different dynamic to me.
Yeah, just a grinder's course. I mean, that every shot, and not that every shot isn't so important, but you know that you're not going to have that many opportunities to make it up. So you really have to grind. And I think that's part of the reason why I played so well, especially this week, is that just suits my game to a T. Even still, don't always have your A game, but grind it out as best as you can.
That's awesome. Morgan, I mentioned this to you when I got to finally meet you this past year. And Shane has not heard the story yet, but both of our grandmothers lived in the same community for a long time. And Morgan's coming up, I'm coming up. We're similar in age, and my grandma is telling my mom how she was bragging about my golf or something. I don't know what grandmas do. Shout out to Mother's Day. And she was saying that this other woman was bragging about her granddaughter, and they were going back and forth. And she said that her granddaughter was Morgan Pressel. And I say, Grandma, you gotta watch your mouth. Like, she's pretty damn good. I don't really want to get into this tussle.
Oh, there's nothing like grandmas bragging about their grandkids.
Yeah, I loved it. I could just see my grandma getting all mad.
I think she'd be pretty proud. I think
we're doing all right.
I think it's okay.
Max, you had a question about youth and just how and how competitive young players seem to be more often on the women's side.
Yeah, Morgan, I just noticed the men's side, the PGA Tour, we'll get some amateurs playing great here and there, but very, very, very rarely do they make any kind of noise on the weekend, let alone, you're in the final group. Michelle's back there. Brittany Lang is back there. We have a lot of amateurs just like in the biggest tournament of the year, kind of, poking their head. I was wondering if you had seen, or if you would have an opinion on why that seems to happen more on the LPGA tour. If you guys are just women are considerably smarter than men, so you guys figure it out much quicker than we do, or something. But I was just curious.
Yeah, I just think in general, women, young ladies tend to mature faster than men. And, I think every U.S. Open has a story of a college kid, a young man who breaks through and has a great showing and is a great story. And I feel like we have that on the women's tour as well, just maybe in a little bit of a younger fashion. It's more the teenager side than the college student. And I don't know. We've had so many breakthrough young stars. Look at Lydia Ko, Michelle Wie, as we mentioned, Lexi Thompson, who had incredible success at really, really young ages. And you definitely don't see that in the men's game. And I do think that's just in how women and women's bodies mature differently than men. And I think you see the same in women's tennis versus men's tennis and things like that.
Gotcha. I know the brains mature differently because I have taken a while to to fully develop up here. I am behind.
No
it's slowly coming. Morgan, last thing, and we'll
it.
let you go. And I know you get asked about this a lot when 05 comes up. Your reaction in the fairway, we're an hour and a half away from it. You're 17 years old, for goodness sakes. Your reaction is like as natural a moment that's ever happened in golf history, I think, because so many times I think people want to react like, oh my goodness, that just happened, and you did. When you look back on the hole out ahead of you, that mental transition and what you had to have gone through in 5 or 6 seconds had to have been as tumultuous as anything you've ever experienced.
Yeah, I definitely feel like it's probably the amateur reaction versus a professional's reaction. But I've always been a player who kind of wore my heart and my emotions on my sleeve. And there's no greater emotion than that happening in front of you when, honestly, I had hit a perfect drive down the fairway and thought I was in an incredible position to win, especially seeing her in the bunker. And it went in. What are you going to do? There's
Can't
nothing
do anything about it.
I could do but try and make birdie. And, I came up short. It didn't happen, but it was an incredible moment, incredible stepping stone in my career to be in that position, just even to have those emotions, to have that opportunity. So I'm very grateful for that opportunity. And it, I think, helped me out definitely, especially maybe how to react a little bit better too.
Listen,
I loved it.
I loved it too.
I get people comment a lot about that to me. Say, "Oh,
I don't get why you can't react however you would want to react. That's just how you feel in the moment. That's what people want to see, and that's like the true, like Shane was saying, the truest form of it. It's would never be able to see what could possibly be wrong with that reaction. It's just frustrating. I'm bummed out. It happened.
Yeah, it was crushing it, and I had to flip it quick. It was like that moment was like, oh my gosh, what just happened? And then, okay, make birdie. Like I had to flip that in my head pretty quickly. And, that was then all I focused on because I had nothing to lose. I wanted to win the tournament. That was what I was there to do. And,
would you say of all the things, obviously you've gotten to be a much better player physically and I'm sure mentally and all these things, but do you think like the one thing you would take away, because I think about this for myself when I was young, the confidence, the brashness, and just the nothing to lose attitude, do you ever look back on that from this week and think, maybe I could harness some of that? Because like we were mentioning earlier, as you get older, we start to see how, I think we start to see how much harder it is than we actually realize. Do you ever kind of look back at this week and realize and kind of think on that?
Oh, definitely. And even what we were talking about earlier, winning at a lot that summer over that time, that confidence that, winning is kind of what's the term that I'm looking for? It promotes more winning. It encourages more winning. It's in that confidence side, but definitely I've definitely thought about, the swagger that I had as a younger player, and how to really be able to harness that most of the time out on tour.
Yeah.
Morgan, I don't picture you as much of a sports gambler. I know Max and I will wager a couple of bucks here and there with each other. I would love to have known what your odds were to win the women's amateur after what you did here. I would imagine they were pretty high. They were like Tiger level when you got to that 05 women's amateur. I would have liked to have had a couple of bucks.
I couldn't
on you.
imagine being us, more intimidated of that. That would have been frightening. As the person playing you in the finals, knowing that you very well could have won the U.S. Open a month earlier, I had to call my mom and say, "Do I have to do this? Can I just take a second? I'd like to pass."
That's pretty funny.
Well, thanks, Morgan. Hey, and thanks for bringing Zoe.
Thank you, Morgan.
I was hoping Zoe would make an appearance.
Oh, say hi. Say thanks for having us.
Of course. We're gonna hunker down and watch.
All right, enjoy.
Thank you.
I won't tell you what happened. I won't give you a spoiler.
All right, sounds good. Appreciate that.
Bye.
Bye.
Straight in, Gary.